Welcome, everybody. Web platform for dialogue has been launched in 2020 during pandemic COVID-19 when we all locked down, and it's a kind of no way how to deal with this seminar and the issues. Then I thought that let's have a forum which will be an open forum for everybody, and from different perspective we can hear from the expert who will share their research work, their experience, their stories with us and with our fellow friends. So without any kind of judgment, we will hear them, because nowadays what is missing, that is, we have lots of people to talk but less people to hear. So here for you, that's a web platform for dialogue motto, that every beat and bite we will be connected with each other. So with this motivations, now this is the second part of web platform for dialogue, and with this series, Piyali Mitra is the first speaker for our web platform for dialogue webinar, and she will be going to talk on a very that how motherhood is being defined, and she is a wonderful scholar, and she is a expert field of philosophy. She is a PhD student, and Piyali Mitra is working as a PhD scholar in the Department of Philosophy at University of Calcutta. She has been working on the religious outlook of human embryonic research. That's a very important aspect nowadays. She is also alumnus of Wolf Institute under University of Cambridge, UK. Her interest lies in the understanding how religion can have an impact on human well-being. She has been working on a project how religion influences human happiness and welfare in the collaboration with Council of Research in Values and Philosophy, Washington, D.C., and Kamala Nehru College, University of Delhi. A book chapter and conference proceedings based on the mentioned theme is awaiting for publication. Congratulations, Piyali. So, and she is a wonderful speaker. Previous webinar we have conducted with the platform for dialogue, and I think 1.k viewers in the, I remember correctly, in our Facebook page. So I welcome Piyali for the wonderful discussions is waiting for us. Now the floor is up to you, Piyali, and after finalizing your talk, we'll again come back to you for some question answer sessions. Piyali.
Thank you, Dr. Chakravarti, for such a wonderful introduction. I don't know how much I made it such an introduction, but nevertheless, thank you so much. And it has been always been wonderful connecting with you and talking in this platform. This platform is really great, where great minds come, and also I must say, they connect, and we have been given a stage where we can open up in a very free way, and there is always a two-way dialogue. It's not a one-way, it's a two-way dialogue. So thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. Okay, now I'd like to share my screen. uh, Hello, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, just a moment. I'm going to give you the key so you can. Just a moment. Just a moment. Now you can share your screen. Just try once.
Okay.
Yes, we can able to see.
So, as I said, my topic is mother and the challenges of motherhood in reproductive technologies. So, in our South Asian states or in countries, especially in India, we see that we are married women or any women are generally placed as Putravati Bhava. This is the common thing that we are placed with mainly because in the South Asian countries, progeny is highly prized and it is an extremely coveted blessing. It has been running from centuries, be it in Mahabharata or in Ramayana or in the present society. We are still say that a married woman must have a progeny. So childlessness is considered a curse. So a child is considered a blessing doubly so if the child happens to be a boy. So my intention is not to show, is not to deny the potential of childbearing as a meaningful activity, but to deny childbearing is a necessary part of woman's nature. A woman's nature cannot be only essentially that she should only bear a child. She has other roles to play too. But this my research is here to show that only childbearing cannot be the only aspect of a womanhood. So now what is saying that the present reproductive technology sometimes tends to scale women down to secondary position or even at times they try to erase them, giving more importance to the embryo instead of the mother or the woman who bears the embryo. So now as I move on to my next slide, I would like to show or share that infertility is considered a major problem in the South Asian countries. For example, it lowers the social status of those women who cannot be able to bear child naturally. Whereas the South Asian cultures and communities being firmly pro-natal and patriarchal in nature gives greater significance to both marriage and parenthood. In fact, both marriage and parenthood confer status and recognition for men as well as women. When a woman becomes a wife, she is accorded a higher status than a single woman. But with motherhood, she has more prestige and security. And it's seen that with infertility, there's a dramatically diminished quality of life. The childless woman is considered sometimes inauspicious and feels unworthy and unwanted. Sometimes they have nobody to talk to share their pain with. In fact, in communities where women are not permitted to have jobs outside homemaking, those who are said to be the homemaker or housewife, they're financially dependent upon their families. So expulsion because of childlessness or divorce without any compensation can be socially and economically devastating for these women. What happens that these women also experience kind of social ostracism, as Beach said in his paper, Seeking Conception Experiences of Urban Women within In Vitro Fertilization, that Indian woman's identity to a certain extent comes from motherhood, which also argues that childless women are at risk of cruelty, rejection, and even divorce. Pressure can come, if not from the husband, but also from the family or wider community. Now, this reaction, however, is less likely for those South Asians who have immigrated to Western countries, because nevertheless, insecurity in marriage is still a possibility if there is infertility. So, one important question is that that may come across generally: if motherhood is viewed as synonymous with womanhood, would women who are infertile or homosexual or not being able to get pregnant naturally, would they not be categorized as women? They are also women as well, though in a developing context such as India or in those South Asian countries, infertility is commonly viewed as some sort of disability. My next slide asks the question whether infertility can be categorized as a disease or not. So there is much debate going on. In fact, the new surrogacy bill also have tried to address it, whether it's a disease or not, but in a very lay way. They have not gone deep, and the way they have defined it is very disdainful for the definition itself. So there is a much debate whether to consider infertility a disease or not. It would necessitate in that way it may necessitate medical treatment if we consider a disease. So there is another argument that treatment for infertility is elective, not medically necessary, because the people believe that not everybody is necessarily infertile, so they cannot be categorized as a medical induction or disease. But recently, the Surrogacy Bill of 2020, which is proposed to be passed by the Rajya Sabha, which waiting to be passed by the Rajya Sabha, they have considered its infertility as a medical induction. So they would probably claim that it should be excluded from the discussion of healthcare priorities and allocation. However, presently, would not be engaging in this kind of debate, but would we be looking like to mention that the situation of infertile women to some extent is aggravated by their being negatively limited in the social participation. It is important to note that regardless of which partner, the woman, man, or both has a problem of infertility, it is generally the woman who is blamed and hence suffers the consequences of the infertility. So, what is the role of the woman in the reproductive scenario? Women actually plays a very important role in the reproductive health scenario. Women reproductive autonomy is central to women's welfare, both because childbearing takes place in women's bodies and because they are generally expected to take primary responsibility for child's rearing. The factors that influence women's reproductive autonomy must strongly are poverty and belief system that devalue such autonomy, ensuring that every woman had the prerequisite for practicing basic reproductive autonomy would take only a fraction of the world's resources. But however, sorrowfully, it is found that autonomy is a very low priority for most society or is an anathema to their belief systems altogether because reproductive autonomy for women is mainly taken a backseat in many countries, even in the developed countries also. Very few resource allocations or rules have been implemented or you can say care have been taken for women reproductive health, especially women reproductive autonomy. So poverty and anti-autonomy belief systems work together to deny women control over their lives. Adriana Rich in the book of Women Born, Motherhood as Experience and Institution retorted that all human life on the planet is born of woman. The one unifying, incontrovertible experience shared by all women and men is that months long period we spend unfolding inside a woman's body. Most of us first know both love and disappointment, power and tenderness in the person of a woman. We carry the imprint of this experience for life, even into our time. So it is whatever we experience first, it is in the womb of the woman. The woman carries the baby. From there, our first experience, if it can be called experience, starts from there itself. So it's a woman's body which should be given priorities. But most of the time, she takes a back seat. Medical research has now enabled procreation of offspring through laboratory techniques without even mating. So these technologies are creating a challenge to our understanding of the relationship between women and reproduction because most of the procreative processes are being taken care of in the test tubes or in the uh, test tubes, or you can say the gamete procreation through donor insemination. So sometimes the relationship between woman and reproduction has become very hazy. So motherhood and reproductive technologies. To the feminists, the new assisted reproductive technologies mean rethinking our attitudes toward motherhood, pregnancy, and most important, the relationship between an individual woman's right to exercise choice with respect to motherhood and the necessity for women to ensure that those individual choices do not disadvantage women as a social group. So the women's movement of the Western world of the 1960s, not long ago, characteristically rejected biological determinism and the nuclear family because these were seen to entrap women. Many women made the choice to be child-free. In this context, motherhood became conflicted with the family and with its rejection. Women were understood to have a variety of motivations for motherhood. They had children because they were socialized or conditions to do so, because they were convinced of the rewards of mothering. In order to gain a self-identity in a world that continually denied this to them, to prove their worth and attain the status of a mature adult, or to consolidate a relationship, For many, motherhood represented a power base from which to negotiate the terms of the existence and survival. For many, this is still the case. So what is this assisted reproductive technology? You can see a picture of how been gamete been produced, been inserted in a plate, and that would never been taken into the fallopian tube of a woman. So assisted reproductive technology split the process of procreation into several consecutive and clearly distinguishable steps. The harvest of gametes from donors, a potential parents, in vitro fertilization, embryo transfer into the womb, then there is the gestation, and finally the child takes birth. So now these human gametes harvested from either from the sellers or donated by say man or woman are put in a test tube or for in vitro fertilization, and one or more embryos can be implanted in the womb for guarantee of birth and womb of the woman that might not have any genetic relations with the soon to be born baby. Now this is a very important fact to be noted, that the baby that is to be born may not have any kind of biological relation with the woman who is bearing the child. That is very important, and this is one of the cases that has never been addressed in the surrogacy bill of the 2020 regulation bill of 2020 of India. What is surrogated motherhood? By surrogate motherhood, it is generally meant the splitting of the generative process. It is so granulated that it could even be a possibility for a child to have up to 5 parents. For example, the sperm donor, that is a male donor, and the social or the intended father, the genetic or the biological mother who donates or sells her eggs, the gestational or the carrier surrogate mother who may carry the child on the pregnancy and gives birth. And then there may be the social or the intended mother. So many parents are involved in our surrogated motherhood. So as we can see, the assisted reproductive technologies have come to change the very meaning of the word mother and transcended the body boundaries of one single woman to multiple mothers. So in the majority of cases, the three figures are the same woman. Maybe the mother who is giving the gametes are those of the same woman who is expecting the mother and the one who gives birth to the baby and brings up the child. Now, the future mother develops a relationship with her child during this 9 months of pregnancy, and this is very natural. And postpartum, she cares the newborn and breastfeeds him or her. Now, this surrogate or gestational motherhood muddled the situation. Who is the mother? Is she the woman who gave birth to the child, or the one to which the child is relinquished? What kind of attachment established? If one, in the peculiar case of motherhood between baby and carrier surrogate gestational mother. Now, in the politics of reproduction, Mary O'Brien claims that men have rituals and ritualistic meetings that reinforce their sex-based identity, but women do not. To celebrate being female, O'Brien claims we need our own rituals, and the birth experience is a primary one that in the past was shared with other women. This tradition has been broken by the intervention of medical technologies in the birthing process. As men become more involved in birthing and the general medical control of women's bodies, the emphasis in delivery moved away from the mother towards the newborn away from woman's ritual presence and towards the relationship between father and the child. Because women labor at birth to bear children, women can be certain of the essential participation in genetic continuity. But men do not have this assurance. O'Brien includes all women in the female reproductive consciousness, since the experience of pregnancy and physiological activities of women's body all indicate in their own specific ways the universal relationship of women to new life. Many mothers, like Barbara Wishart, for example, an Australian lesbian mother who conceived her daughter through artificial insemination by an unknown donor, she writes that the experience of motherhood has given me a deep bond with other mothers I know of and a sense of continuity, not only with the women in my own family, but also with the continuous lines of women from antiquity to the present day who have borne challenge. So Wishart stresses that the experience of motherhood itself still has something positive or worthwhile or even wonderful about it. So, coming back to the discussion of IVF and surrogacy, it makes me remember one interesting aspects of functions and roles pertaining to career or surrogate gestational mothers and social and internet mothers has been found by the medical anthropologist Ellie Amon. In an anthropomorphic study she conducted in Israel, she found that surrogates continuously abdicate through language and embodied practice. The title of mother to the babies they carry, they cognitively partition their bodies and natures to ensure that their own maternity remains devoted to their own biological children, while the process of gestation they embody actually facilitates the maternity of the intended mothers. In this separation of functions, intended mothers live their pregnancy in an indirect way, almost experiencing it through somebody else's body. In Indian fertility clinics for assisted reproduction, surrogate mothers are conceived by physicians as skilled factory workers. The surrogate is told that she's merely a womb. This is meant to prevent her from getting emotionally attached to the baby. As Amrita Pandey, a famous specialist in surrogacy cases, have reported in his book, Wombs in Labor Transactional Commercial Surrogacy in India. So the woman is just a temporary caretaker. She has to be professional, but at the same time, nurturing. In Pandey's word, the perfect surrogate is one who is constantly aware of her disposability and the transience of her identity as a worker, and yet loves the product of her transient life, the fetus as her own. So this is very contradictory. You have to be very professional. You cannot be linked emotionally. At the same time, you must have to love the baby or the fetus you're bearing. So trained worker and nurturing mother. That is the conflicting view about the career surrogate gestational mother. The question, does the career surrogate gestational mother breastfeed the newborn? But this is a question which has not been very much addressed, or this question has remained very much shrouded. Not much attention is paid to this issue, as it is often becomes a legal clause in surrogacy contracts. For this reason, there are no univocal views about this topic. The practice of breastfeeding is variable, and usually the surrogate or gestational mother follows intended or social parents' desire. If they want the baby to be breastfed, the surrogate mother does so. And she is paid for offering a service for caretaking, which is explicitly indicated in the surrogacy contract. Now, breastfeeding is usually discouraged in the Indian fertility clinic most of the time, or hospitals where children are born in order to avoid bonding with the carrier, surrogate, or gestational mother. In some cases, the surrogates cannot see the baby after delivery, and some intended social mothers ask for induced lactation in order to establish the attachment with the baby. So despite the ban on commercialization of surrogacy, certain problems still persist. So irrespective of familial ties between the intending parents and the surrogate, it is exploitative to expect women to perform reproductive labor without being adequately compensated for it. Further, with no payment allotted in the bill, these women will perform in reproductive labor for less than the minimum wage, attracting the application of Article 23 of the Constitution. Admittedly, compensation is not an antidote to coercion, but as the Supreme Court has noted, coercion is endemic, whether in the labor market or in marriage, and compensation can keep impermissible levels of exploitation at bay. So there's new surrogacy bill of India 2020 has lots of flaws. The other flaws being the proposed bill by excluding cohabiting couples, single persons, and same-sex couples from pursuing surrogacy violates their right to privacy and reproductive autonomy as set out in the 270th Puthuswamy judgment of the Supreme Court. The Indian government must anticipate constitutional challenges on these fronts. On the other hand, like the proponents of the bill, it may be believed the epitome of Indian mother is to reproduce children for the market with divine warmth and affection, irrespective of detriment to the well-being of oneself and family, thus valorizing freely provided reproductive labor. On the other hand, the inclusion of the term prescribed expenses leaves the door half open for some form of compensation, especially since the arrangement is not restricted to close relatives. So I would like to conclude here as surrogacy has become an extended practice in which all peculiarities of motherhood have been crushed and overcome by assisted reproductive technology and its development. Surrogacy has been a woman's choice, her right to exercise her agency, To be a mother or to want to help another woman become a mother is woman's weakness. But the Indian Surrogacy Regulation Bill of 2020 will push the business underground and result in cash payments over which surrogates will have little control. Instead of empowering or protecting surrogates, it may take away the agency altogether. Thank you for your kind patience.
As usual, a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for raising this particular very important topic because being a mother, it's very close to me. So I thought that let's open the second innings of the platform for dialogue with you when you shared your first topic. That's very close to me. And here I really would like to share one of very close bonding and starting with our epic that even in Ramayana Mahabharata also it's a shared stories of surrogacy. So in Indian culture it's not very new, and it's not about the westernized society which actually injected surrogacy with Indian society, but it's within us, before also. And the way they have structured, the way they have elaborated in the epics, that was very different stories. Thank you so much, Piyali, for sharing the wonderful research work done by you. So here I open the forum for the discussions, and I really welcome some sort of your experience and stories, but with a very short form because we are running out of time. So we have to finish it within time. So I really would be appreciate if the participant would like to ask something to Piyali directly. So if not, you can write in the chat box if you have some questions. I have a question to Piyali that as a researcher from human rights background, when you shared the experience that lactation is not being allowed while it's a question of surrogacy, so how would you treat as a human being, not as a researcher, as a human being? I felt very disgraceful to the mother and the child because the first milk, that is the yellowish milk, is very important for the healthy lifestyle of the child. So how would you deal with that?
This is, I would say, very inhuman thing. It's actually very much a commercialization because they don't want to develop a kind of a bond between the gestational mother and the child. They had sometimes beyond a kind of a hindrance. But this I considered a very inhuman thing. In fact, I have read some interviews also with some from Anand in Gujarat, but Dr. Patel has also addressed this issue, has been trying to address this issue. So later on, some contracts have been developed where sometimes the gestational mothers are allowed to feed their babies for say about 2-3 weeks, like that.
Yes,
They have
yes.
stipulated some time, some certain cases, if the commissioning parents allow so. It
Okay.
depends
There
upon
is
the
a
wish
if. There
and
is
the
a if.
whims. Yes, exactly. Wish
There is
and
a
whims
if.
of the commissioning parents. So this is actually very much an inhuman thing, which
It's
has been
not,
observed.
it's inhuman, and at the same point I feel that it's very important for the babies because in the
Exactly
long
so.
run,
Exactly.
if we
Exactly.
are seeing the history of the baby's health, it would be deteriorating if he or she is not getting that yellow milk, the first milk of the mother. So it's actually boost up the in immunity powers. So in the long run it would be not so much healthy baby we could able to see. So that's
Yes.
one of the major issues. I think they would think it
Yes.
very
Yes. Yes.
seriously, very
Yes,
seriously.
exactly so. Another issue is that the nobody is really bothered about the child born out of this surrogacy. Nobody thinks about that because if he or she wants to know where I am born from,
Yeah.
that provision is not allowed still now in India. It is hedged
Okay.
in shrouded in mystery. In
Okay.
American and the Western countries, they are developing a way so that
Hmm.
they surrogate child can get back to the I mean, this
Root.
child can get to the root or the surrogate. They can find out the
Yes. Yes,
who has
yes.
given him birth. There are provisions, but in India, it's still in a mystery. People have
Okay.
actually, we thought that the new provision, the new bill would address this issue, but still it has not yet. And we are still, as a researcher, we have put this question to them: if the government can take up this issue and develop it, and if the
Yes,
Rajya
we
Sabha
hope.
committee
Yes.
can
Rajya
address this.
Sabha and later on Lok Sabha also
Lok
we
Sabha
would
has already
expect it.
passed it
Okay.
because they have got the majority, but the select committee of the Rajya
Hmm.
Sabha is withholding it and they wanted to bring about some kind of change. So we have
Changes. Okay.
already put these questions to them so that they can address this problems that.
Very major issue. Thank you so much. Thank you, Piyali, for raising this particular issues. And we have one questions. Okay, from Rohit sir. What are the side effects of COVID-19 infection during pregnancy? It's not related with today's topic, but yes, if Piyali would like to answer.
There are many things because infection should be avoided. Pregnant women must take special care because they are vulnerable to infections, and the pregnant body is always can attract different kind of diseases because they're weak. The bodies are very susceptible to development of disease. So I think infection, as much infection is less infection is possible, they should be avoided. That's what I can
Thank
say.
you. Yes, thank you, Piyali. Being a student of philosophy, how would you see that philosophical aspect is very much related with science? So that's a major tricky things that as a student of philosophy, you collaborate so many things with scientific explanations and technology, and that's very very wonderful thing. We must appreciate your way of teaching, your way of research. That's very important. Thank you so much, Piyali. So we are almost at the end of the discussions, and I really appreciate your own time and on very very important topic because being a mother, being a human being, we must raise these issues and. Here you mentioned very correctly that degrading and inhuman treatment for the surrogated child and the mother, the bonding has been missing, and it's not been done. So through this web platform for dialogue, I really really pleased, and I really apply for the human identity that is missing part for the surrogated child and the mother. It's okay that you have a contract, but at the same time, uh, you should be very very aware about the health and the mental health, because that is very important. Maybe he or she is a very neonatal or very newborn, but even with that also they have a very very soft and very vulnerable at the same time.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
thank you so much, Piyali, for your time. So here I'm going to stop myself, and I really wish that Piyali will share more and more topic with the platform for dialogue, and I
Yeah,
really
sure. Love
welcome
to,
you.
love to. Okay, love to share so.
Thank you
I look
so much,
forward to it.
Piyali.
Okay.
Okay, take care.
Okay.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, everybody who joined Piyali sessions. And I'm going to share the feedback link here in the chat box. So, presented here, they can just fill it up and share with me for your certificate. That is very important because after finishing any kind of webinar, seminar, we are asking for the certificate. For certificate, you have to fill it up. So thank you so much. I'm going to share it right now if time permits. Yes, I can see time is still left. So I'm going to share it right now.
So I can leave. I can
Yes,
leave.
yes, yes. Bye bye.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you. Bye.